In this video we're going to make these simple shelf brackets. So I've been given a piece of paper there and that has the details on. Basically it needs to be 100mm high at the back there. The piece of wood that's going on is 143mm, so we're going to make that bit 145, and at the end it's 22mm deep, so we're going to put a little stop end on at 20mm. So what I've done is I've cut the pieces already, and this is 3mm by 25mm mild steel, and you'll see that I have already marked this one out. So those are the two drill holes that will be fixing it to the wall. It'll then be bent. Those two will fix up into the shelf, and then at the end there we'll bend that approximately 18mm in, up 90 degrees. That will give us a piece sticking up about 20mm. So the first step is to cut all the pieces to the correct size, and that will of course depend on how big you need your brackets. But with this I've cut them all like so, and as you can see at the ends there, they are pretty rough. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to clean up the ends. And then to mark this out, I have done a video on marking out, so I will put a link to that in the description to save time. So I have marked that out for drilling, and I have also centre punched each of the holes where it needs drilling. Instead of marking out each piece, all we're going to do is put all those on top of each other, clamp them together, and we're going to pack drill all the way straight through each of the holes in one go. That will save considerable time because we're actually making 6 of these. To clean the end up, it's very easy. We don't want to put a radius on it. We're just going to take off any of the rough parts and ensure that it is smooth. So we're just going to take a file. I'm just going to file across the top of it. We're then just going to put a tiny radius on the end there just to take the rough bit off. We'll do that at both sides. What I don't want to do is alter the shape of the metal. We do want it to be square at the end. I'm then just going to put a chamfer on the end there. And same at the back. Now that has removed any of the rough parts, but just to give it a better finish, we're just going to draw file it on the top. So that is now very smooth, and if anybody does catch themselves on that, it's not going to damage them or damage the clothing, etc. If you want to get a better finish on that, you can of course use some emery cloth, etc., or some abrasive paper, and that will give you a really smooth finish. So that only takes a couple of seconds. It's worth doing that on each piece. So I've marked this up with engineer's blue, and on one end there I have actually coloured all of them in with blue so that we get them all in the correct orientation for drilling, and also when it comes to bending. They're the screws that we're going to be using to go into the wall. So I've got the correct size drill bit. I have tested that already on a scrap piece to ensure that the hole is the correct size. So we've now got those clamped up like so. We can now safely drill through each one of those. We'll go through all 6 pieces in one go. I'm now going to set the countersink to the correct depth so that it'll fit the screws that we are using. So I'm just going to get that in the right place. Now I just need to go a little bit deeper. And of course this is just a scrap piece that I'm testing to get the countersink in bit to the correct depth. And as you can see, that is perfect at that depth. Now how you do this will depend on the type of drill that you've got. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that in there. I'm going to bring the drill down, put it in the hole where I've just countersunk it, like so. And then I've got a depth stop that I can set on the drill. So now if I remove that, that will now only go down to that depth and it will actually stop there. And that is the exact place that we need to get all of the countersunk holes countersunk to the correct depth. So we've now got 24 holes that we need to countersink to that depth, which will be very easy because the drill is set up ready. If you don't have a pillar drill like this, you can of course use a normal hand drill. It is just more time consuming. We now need to mark these up for bending. So what I've done, I've got all the ends that have the blue marker on them. I've put them onto this edge and we're using a square to keep everything square. I'm now just going to put a weight on there to hold that down. And on this end, we need a 20mm bend approximately. And when you bend metal, it tends to stretch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark 18mm from the very end. And obviously this doesn't need to be exact because we're not making a Swiss watch. So I'm just going to scribe on there at 18mm. I'm going to do the same on this bottom one. And then I'm going to put the rule across there on that line and I'm going to scribe in all 6 pieces at once. So I'm going to press down on the rule. I'm going to take the scriber and I'm going to scribe in a line on every single piece. So all of those now should be identical. And then I made the total length of these 265mm. So once we've bent it, we then need at least 143mm to be able to get the board in. So I'm going to go 165mm from the very end. And again, I'm going to put a scribe line in there. Obviously you can't see the line all that well because I've not used marking out fluid. But now all I need to do is get on that line at each side, like so, and then just scribe in across there. And that will give us our second bend line. Now obviously we have to bend these in different directions. The smaller one needs bending backwards so that the countersinking holes are facing the correct way, and the other bend needs bending the opposite way, which should be pretty obvious. To do the bending, we're going to use this vise. So as you can see, we've got the scribe line there. This isn't the best vise in the world because the jaws aren't fixed in very well, but we're going to do the best that we can. So I'm going to push the piece in there, and I'm going to get the scribe line completely flush with the jaws. So I've zoomed in there. You should just be able to see the faint scribe line that is in line with the top of the jaw exactly. And we need to remember to bend this the correct way. Now we've done that, we need to tighten the vise up as tight as we can get it without going mad. Then once we've done that, we just need to bend back on the steel and hit the steel at the same time as close as we can to the top of the vise. And that has given us our 90-degree bend at the end there. If you check that, it is roughly 20 mil. So that's the first bend. And for this one, I'm going to put it in the opposite way around. And if you're wondering why I'm doing this, it's because the jaw at the back there is the better quality of the two jaws. So again, I'm going to ensure that I get the scribe line completely level with the top of the vise. If you've got dodgy vise jaws like me, you can take an engineer's square, put it on the jaw that we're using to do the bending, because these two aren't actually parallel, and we can just check that with an engineer's square just to ensure that it is right. And if it is off by a little bit, you can just tap that over before you tighten the vise up fully. And that is pretty much square now. So again, we need to bend this back and give it a tap with the hammer. So that is one bracket that has been made. We now need to make another 5. You can see that all of those have the exact same angles bent on them, or very, very similar. If you need to adjust them slightly, you can just put them back in the vise, bend them back with your hand, etc. It's really not difficult at all to bend 3mm thick steel. So we're now just going to give those a bit of a clean up with some methylated spirits and give them a lick of paint, and that is it. I hope you found this video useful. If you have and you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel.